Hello and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel in the first place. So today we have a Bakugou X listener, and just to let you know, your quirk is Siren, and it basically works how a siren works. I don't really know how to explain that, but you can look up what a siren is if you need help with that. Let's just go ahead and start. Both of my parents were gone on a business trip, but they trusted me to stay at home alone. Because I've always been doing that since I was young, but obviously I had a babysitter when I was younger. I was laying in bed while on my phone, and then I heard a loud knock on my door. I raised an eyebrow and got up from my bed and walked to the door and opened it. It was Mina. "Oh, what's up?" I said to her, and she smiled. "Listener, all of us are going to the school pool. Do you want to come?" I looked down and shrugged. My parents aren't here at the moment. Whatever. Let's just go," I said, and she hugged me. "Yay, let's go." I smiled and grabbed my stuff and a pair of clean clothes to wear after the pool. When we got to the school, I was given a bathing suit, and I walked into the girls' locker room and began to change into it. I followed Mina to the pool area, and I saw the rest of the girls stretching, and the guys were talking. I looked over and I saw Katsuki yelling at someone. He then looked up our way, and our eyes met, and we were staring at each other's. My heart beated faster the longer his fiery red eyes stared into mine. I then broke eye contact and walked faster to where the girls were. I don't know why, but he makes me feel like this. He is a self-centered brat that cares about nothing but getting to the top. But that's what made him different from everyone. When I first met him, he gave me that vibe, but I didn't care. I was able to talk to him, and I thought he was kind of a cool person when he wasn't yelling or pissed off at someone or something. Specifically Izuku. He was pretty calm and very fragile when you take the time to talk to him. One day, while we were in class with Kirishima and Kaminari, I was with Mina and we were talking when I realized I was staring at Bakugou for too long because he gave me a weird look, and Mina began to give me the look. She gives me when she realizes something, and she figured out my big secret. She promised not to tell him, but that didn't stop her from telling Kirishima, Sero, and Kaminari. I felt embarrassed about how they told me they knew. They all knew. Everyone but Bakugou. "Let's get into the pool now," Yuraka said, and the rest of the girls agreed. They eventually decided to play volleyball, and I just sat at the end of the pool with my feet in the water. I was kicking my feet back and forth, then Ida yelled for a 15-minute break. The girls got out of the pool and decided to just sit in the shade and talk to each other. I still sat at the edge of the pool with my feet in there. I hummed silently to myself. If I hummed too loud, God knows what could happen. I felt calm and everything seemed to quiet down around me. When all of a sudden, I heard a loud yell that was obviously from Bakugou. "Of course, otherwise there'd be no way I'd lose to a damn nerd like you." I smiled a bit. Sure, he was yelling at Izuku at the moment, but I didn't realize he was shirtless. And that's when I blushed extremely bright red. I noticed I was staring for too long when our eyes met again, and I looked away and I felt my heart pounding out of my chest. "Everyone, do you want to see which of the boys can swim 50 meters the fastest?" Ida asked. I looked up and Bakugou was still looking at me. My whole face was heated up, and then he looked away. I sighed and began to calm down. I pulled my feet out of the water and walked to where the girls were. "I'll crush you, Deku!" I looked over at Bakugou and smiled to myself. He was very passionate about what he believed in and what he loved. Some boys decided to go first. I sat under the shade and looked at them get into position. I noticed Bakugou, and he looked really concentrated on this, which of course made me smile. "Get ready." Then the whistle blew. "Explosive speed turbo!" Bakugou yelled, and I laughed a bit, but no one could hear me because they were all too focused on the others. "How is that, you extras?" he yelled in a cocky voice. "What do you mean, how is that?" "You didn't even touch the water!" Sero and Kirishima yelled. "It's called freestyle," Bakugou yelled back. I laughed again and Bakugou heard. "What are you laughing at?" I jumped and looked at him. "Nothing," I said, and he growled. "Better be nothing." He walked past me, and I couldn't help but snicker a bit. I began to doze off, and then Bakugou sat next to me. "Hi," I said as he looked at me. "Hey." I felt my heart beat faster when our eyes met again. I quickly looked away, trying to hide my blushing face. "What's wrong with you?" he asked, trying to look at me. I shook my head and laughed nervously. "Oh, it's nothing, it's just kinda hot out," I said quickly. He scoffed and I felt his shoulder slightly brush against mine. "The winners of each heat, Bakugou, Todoroki, and Midoriya, will face for first place," Ida yelled. Bakugou stood up and looked back down at me. "You better cheer for me and not Deku or that half-and-half bastard." I laughed and nodded. "I will." He nodded with a smile and walked over to Kirishima. I stood up and walked next to Mina. Everyone was cheering for someone but me. But then Bakugou looked me in the eyes with his beautiful red irises that made me lose my breath. I realized that he was staring at me and I smiled. "Go, Bakugou! I know you can do this. You got this!" He smiled and faced forwards. "On your mark, get set." The whistle blew and then they all fell in? I looked over to the doors and saw Aizawa. "Your pool time is now up. Hurry up and go home." I sighed and looked at Bakugou. He looked about ready to murder someone. Kaminari then started complaining, which led to Aizawa giving us a mean look, and it made me stiff as a board. "Did you say something?" "Nothing, sir," we all yelled. I changed into my clothes and walked out of the locker room. I saw Mina and she saw me. "Want to walk with us?" she asked, and I looked behind her. It was Kirishima and Bakugou. I nodded and walked next to her. Bakugou and Kirishima were walking out in front of us, and they were in their own conversation. Mina and I started talking about a new store that opened up, and how we should go to that store. Then Kirishima started talking to Mina, and I walked up next to Bakugou. "Hey there," I said, and he looked down. "Hey." He had a cocky grin on his face and looked at me. "What?" I said, and he laughed slightly, which made my heart thump so loud. "Thanks for cheering me. I thought you might have cheered for Deku." I laughed and shook my head. "He is my friend, but you asked first," so he rolled his eyes and I laughed. As we were walking, I realized it was quiet. Too quiet. I turned around and I saw Mina and Kirishima were gone. "When did they leave?" I said, and Bakugou turned around. "What the hell?" he said, and I laughed. I started to hum and Bakugou looked down. "Isn't that dangerous?" he asked, and I shook my head. "Only if I want it to be," I said and continued humming. He nodded and went silent again. We made it to my street and I stopped. My apartment's right here," I said, and he looked at it and then at me. "Oh, okay." He looked back at the ground. "Bakugou, are you okay?" He looked up at me and nodded. "Just upset I couldn't show you how a real hero can win a small race like that." I laughed at his cocky tone. "Maybe next time, champ," I said, and he smiled. "Next time?" I shrugged, and I was going to walk down the street, but then I felt someone grab my arm. I looked at the hand and then trailed up to Bakugou's eyes. He gave me an unreadable expression. Bakugou." He was going to walk away, but I ran up in front of him to stop him, and he looked at me with a confused face. I hummed, and he realized what I was doing. I couldn't help myself. I had to know why he was acting so weird, and not his usual cocky, explosive self. He then put his hands down from his ears and looked up at me. "Listener, I was scared to say it, but you're beautiful and I feel some type of way around you, but I don't know what." I stopped humming and he snapped out of it. He gave me an unreadable expression, and then said, "Fuck it, pussies run the world," and quickly grabbed my hips and pulled me close to him. Our lips connected and I was shocked, but then closed my eyes and wrapped my arms around his neck. He pulled back slightly, but I could still feel his lips brush against mine. I feel the same way," I mumbled, and he gave me a shocked look. I smiled, and his shocked expression changed to a devilish grin. "Of course you do. Who wouldn't fall for me?" I laughed and punched him in the chest. "Shut it, before I take that back," I said, and he laughed again. We stood there for a moment. "Let me walk you to your door," he said, and I smiled. "Okay." We made it to my door, and I opened it. I'm gonna regret this, but do you want to come in?" He smiled and nodded. "Of course." I smiled and let him in. We sat on the couch and decided to watch a bunch of movies and talk in between them. I looked up at him and he seemed tired. So I asked, "Are you tired?" And he nodded. "Mind if I stay here? It's dark out and I live a bit away from here." I nodded and he stood up. "I'm tired too. Let's get to bed." He nodded and followed me to my bed, and I decided to stick with the leggings and shirt I was already wearing. Bakugou took his shoes off and then laid next to me. I moved closer to him and hugged his torso. He laughed and put one arm around me while the other was under his head. "Good night." He didn't answer, so I decided to tease him a bit. "I love you," I said, and I felt his heartbeat quicken. "Yeah, I love you too," he mumbled, barely letting me hear it. I smiled to myself and blushed. Okay, so this one was kind of cheesy, and I hope you didn't mind that. But I kind of still found it cute. I find like most of the fanfics that I read cute, and that's kind of why I read them. Although occasionally I might do some angsty ones, but we will see. Oh, and just to let everybody know, Oh, sorry, I heard somebody walking above me. Just to let everybody know, I will never be reading smut ones because I don't feel comfortable with that. Yeah, that's it. So, goodbye!